Linda Ditchkus and Paul Martz. Welcome to the Rocky Mountain Writer Podcast.
Hey, thanks, Mark.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. And we are, I don't know, maybe this is sort of the introduction of you to the RMFW community as the co-editors of the next RMFW short story anthology. The word is sort of just starting to trickle out, but we can take credit here on the podcast as breaking that news.
I think so. Yep.
Because we are first in line. The podcast counts the most. I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's great to have you guys on, and thank you so much on behalf of all the writers out there. We sure appreciate having two people step up and volunteer to run the anthology, which is a huge responsibility. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having us here, Mark. We're very excited about the anthology, and we're really psyched about this opportunity to tell people about it and about us.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, before we get into your plans for the anthology and the schedule and how it's going to work and all that kind of good stuff, let's get to know each of you first a little bit as writers. And Linda, let's start with you, if you don't mind. Give us a little background on how long you've been writing, what you write, what you're interested in. Just tell us a little story about yourself as a fiction writer.
Sure. I've been writing probably all my life. Started out, like a lot of people, youth. Not a lot of skills, but a lot of enthusiasm for writing. And then during my career, I was in banking supervision and an accountant, and I did a lot of technical writing. I mean, lots and lots of technical writing, trying to make accounting sound easier. And so that was kind of a skill that I had. And then once I was finished with that career, I started writing just for fun. And there was a lot to learn, and surrounded myself with some amazing people, both beta readers and in Rocky Mountain fiction writers, and lots of different groups that I've just been really honored to be a part of, and wrote 4 books actually that are out, self-published books, the Sasquatch series. The first one's called Crimes of the Sasquatch, and I would call that one a little Sasquatch light, because it really deals with the Sasquatch community and brings it into kind of a crime story as well. So that was a lot of fun. And now I'm writing a little more hard-boiled sort of science fiction stuff. I've had some great opportunities. I got to be a team leader for the judging for the Self-Published Science Fiction Award for last year. That was a lot of fun. Another great experience. Met a lot of cool people from all over the world, because it was all done on Zoom and you could be anywhere and be a judge. So that was a lot of fun as well. And I had some cool things happen. The science fiction books were given first prize for science fiction from the Colorado Authors League. So I was really thrilled about that too. So having some successes and just having an awful lot of fun with this second career, I guess, in writing. A lot of fun.
That's great. And we can put in a link to the previous podcast about the Sasquatch series a couple of years ago, probably, or so, maybe a little bit longer ago than that. But I think it was in the pre-video podcast days as well, I think. Yeah.
Could have been.
And before we get to Paul, Linda, where do you live?
Oh, I live in Salida, Colorado, so up in the mountains.
Ah, nice, beautiful town, and a lot of great art and cool stuff going on, and a great bookstore too.
Yeah, really awesome bookstore, that's for sure. And lots of hiking, snowshoeing. That's what I spend my other free time doing. So
yeah. Do you ever run into Anita Mumm?
Absolutely. She's my editor, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
She's helped me work on this new series quite a bit. So thrilled to work with her.
She's a pretty nice person, as people go.
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding. She's one of the best. She's one of the best. I have gone to the retreat that she and Ben Leroy hold in Salida. I might go back again this year too, and they just do a great job anyway.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard when you try to find an editor to get one that you can really understand everything they say, because sometimes people talk past you. I mean, it's just a personality thing. And she is just one of those people that we connected, and I totally understand when she's giving me advice. Yeah. Exactly what I need to do to fix it or whatever. So she's been amazing. Really appreciate it.
She was a huge help to me on my baseball novel. Absolutely huge help at the very inception of it. So yeah, I give her a lot of credit. Yep. All right, Paul, let's give us the same sort of rundown if you don't mind.
Sure. I think, like most fiction writers, I've had an early interest since childhood in writing stories. But I had interest in a lot of different subjects. And when I got to University of Michigan, I pursued a general studies degree so that I could study not just creative writing, but also art, music, mathematics, and computer programming. And after graduation, I went into an engineering career during which I didn't do any creative writing, but I did do a lot of technical writing and have several self-published programming books to my credit, as well as one traditionally published programming book. And those gave me a lot of experience with the editing and the publishing process. But it was after retirement that I was finally able to pursue my interest in creative writing. 5 years ago, I joined Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers, and I started to write primarily science fiction short stories with some successes so far. One story was accepted into the RMFW Wild Anthology, and another story just last year took second place in the Roswell Awards, which is a science fiction contest put on by LitFest Pasadena. I would say the thing that's helped me out the most in my short 5-year writing career has been my critique group, the Speculative Fiction Writers Critique Group. And in fact, that's where Linda and I met.
So science fiction is your common bond.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great. Paul, you say you're retired, but I'm sorry, you only look like you're about 40 years old, so that's not possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Does my beard show up at all? It's quite stubble.
Wow, you're retired. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Well, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so let's get into some of the nuts and bolts here. And the first unveiling is the theme. Which one of you wants to announce it?
Oh.
All right.
We do have a theme, and the theme is Colorado's changing climate. I think anyone who lives in Colorado has been experiencing extreme climate events for the past several years. The event that had the most impact on me was the recent Marshall Fire. I don't live in Louisville. I used to. I currently live in nearby Erie, Colorado. But friends of ours in Louisville did lose their home. And my wife and I decided to move in with my father-in-law so that we could rent our house out to our friends who had lost pretty much everything.
Wow.
So even today, this is still my living arrangement. I'm still in my father-in-law's home, and we hope that our friends are going to finally move into permanent accommodations this spring, and my wife and I will be able to return to our house.
Are you your house, are you just letting them stay there, or is there some rent? I mean, if you're letting them stay there, this is one of the most generous acts I've heard of.
I'm not that good. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No. Yeah, their insurance company is paying us rent.
Okay.
Yeah. So it works out to everyone's benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what communities do during natural disasters, right? They come together and they help each other out.
Yeah,
well, yeah. So this was still very much on my mind last August when Amy and Veronica were publishing the Bizarre Bazaar anthology. And I started to kind of muse in my head, did I want to be involved in the next anthology? And if so, what theme would I pick? And it didn't take me long before Colorado's changing climate popped into my head. And it's a very, very powerful theme that resonated with me. And I think everyone in the RMFW community is going to be very excited about this anthology with a theme like that.
Yeah.
At the subsequent Gold Conference, I kind of started putting feelers out to people about getting involved. And it was Tasha Watts, the editor of the Wild Anthology, who really encouraged me to go ahead and be the editor. And then I started thinking about who did I want to co-edit with, and Linda's experience with her Sasquatch series, self-publishing that, plus her past experience on the self-published science fiction competition, that really sold her and made her the ideal co-editor, in my opinion.
That's great. Very cool. Well, and to your point about enthusiasm around the topic, the Marshall Fire is a very dramatic example. And for those who don't know about the Marshall Fire, don't recognize it off the top of their head, but it was a fire outside Boulder. I'm trying to place the timing, last spring.
December 21.
Okay, December 21.
Yeah.
That how many houses were taken down in an afternoon, basically?
It was nearly 1,000 residences, and the housing market's already pretty tight in Boulder County, and when 1,000 families suddenly needed a place to live, it was a pretty tough situation.
Right. My point was that that was a tremendously dramatic example of climate change and just wildland fire. But in fact, climate change has so many manifestations in so many different forms all over the state. So there's no shortage of ways to get at that subject. It's almost ubiquitous / universal these days. So it's a great theme, I think. Yeah.
Agreed. And going back years.
Yeah. Is that the actual, do you envision that being the title on the cover, or is that's the theme and not necessarily the title of the anthology?
Currently, that's our theme, and we're going to have to collect some stories and make some decisions about what's going in and see whether that ends up being the actual title, or we decide on something more appropriate.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So Linda, what was your overall reaction when you got pulled in?
So Paul's giving me a look now. So I'm going to be pretty honest. Paul came up to me, I think it might have been at the Rocky Mountain Fiction at the Gold Conference, and he came up to me and he says, Linda, you're going to just be thrilled about this idea I have. And I said, yeah, what's that? And he said, I've decided to go ahead and put my name in, throw my hat in the ring for being the editor for the next anthology. And, he's going on about the theme and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, Paul, this is a really great opportunity for you. I think you should do that. And he said, no, Lindy, you don't understand. He said, I want you to do this with me. And I was like, whoa, that's a big ask. And then I started thinking about it. It didn't take me too long to think about it, but what an opportunity, both to give back to Rocky Mountain fiction writers that helped me in so many ways, to work with Paul, who we've done classes together and we've done a lot of writing together through this spec fiction group. He's an awesome person to work with. So yeah, I was like, absolutely, let's do this. Let's go forward with this. So yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So it's the first ever anthology produced by RMFW that's going to be 100% science fiction short stories. Is that what I get?
Not exactly. Not exactly.
I'm kidding.
And you're right. We're both into the sci-fi end of it. But That being said, we are really looking for across all genres for this. I mean, I think that there's a lot of obvious things that when people hear the theme, they'll say, well, gee, what they're looking for are, stories about real life experiences that are kind of shifted into the fiction realm. So they could be true stories, but moved into a fiction story. There's going to be stories that are going to try to make us empathize with the environmentalists and big business bad. We're going to see a whole lot of those kinds of submissions. We're certain of that, and we certainly will want to see those sorts of things because I think that really showcases this theme. But we also want to see everything across the genre. Bring us some kind of a thriller or a detective story where the crime can't be solved without somebody fixing some kind of climate issue or bringing something to somebody's attention, or even some kind of a sparks flying in a romance story and the two people just happen to be both assigned to the Superfund cleanup at Rocky Flats. So I mean, use your imaginations, go wild, really think about this theme and embrace it. We've mentioned the theme to some people too, and they say, Colorado's changing climate is not necessarily about the environment either. It could be something more political. It could be something completely different. So bring us some sci-fi, bring us some thrillers, bring us some romance, YA, it's all welcome. And use your imaginations.
That's great. Excellent. Well, before we get into sort of some of the questions about just the production schedule and all that, I mean, how does it feel right here at the beginning for each of you to be managing this project? Does it feel good? Does it feel scary? What does it sound like it's going to be a lot of work? Maybe Paul, start with you.
Sure. I have a pretty bad case of imposter syndrome right now because I've never done a project like this. And there's, as we've been rolling this out over the past few days, getting the emails out to newsletters and recording the podcast with you, there's a little voice in my head that tells me that I have no business editing an anthology, and I probably shouldn't even be in this podcast right now.
Come on. Yeah.
So I have to make a conscious effort to shut that down. And I have to say to myself, I really do have some experience with self-publishing and editing, both as a technical writer and as a fiction writer through the anthologies we've done in the Speculative Fiction Writers Critique Group. And though I might be a little bit green, certainly, there's a lot of resources at my disposal. First of all, RMFW is full of members who are going to be very excited to work on this project and donate their time either as volunteer judges or doing formatting or cover art. The past editors of Bizarre Bazaar and Wild have both let us know that they're available in case we get blocked or stuck. Just give them a call to ask questions. And then I've got Linda as my co-editor, and she's going to help keep me from going off the rails completely. So I'm rationally, objectively, I think this anthology is going to be a success. In fact, I'm confident it's going to be one of RMFW's most successful anthologies ever.
That's great. It's great to have goals like that and put that out there. That's fantastic. Yeah. So Linda, also just for you, before we get into the production schedule, how are you feeling running at this stage of the game?
I'm feeling pretty good, but both Paul and I in our prior careers have managed big projects, and I have led international teams in different kinds of projects. And even though the specifics of this project are very different, but like Paul said, we have amazing people we're all just volunteers and are willing to give us information and to help us out and to make sure they steer us in the right direction. And so Paul and I are both spreadsheet people. We're both focusing on deadlines and milestones and all that kind of stuff. So I really do think that we've got the basic skills to move forward with this and make it a successful project. And both of us are very wedded to the theme too. And so that's a big part of it as well.
Well, speaking of milestones and signposts and deadlines and things like that, what should we potential submitters, writing folks out there, what's the schedule look like, Linda?
Okay, so we're opening, there's obviously a portal that's on the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers website, like as typical if people have submitted before, and that'll be open on March 15th. So it's on the RMFW website. If you click under Anthology, you'll see all the prior anthologies, and then there's a link for this current anthology. And the portal for that will be open on March 15th, and it'll be open for 3 months through June 15th. So June 15th will be the last day. And then we're expecting submissions to be anything between 2,000 and 6,000 words. Again, if it was 3 words over or 3 words under, we're not gonna, chop you out or anything like that, but we're hoping that people will be in that ballpark. We also have some kinds of requirements, like we really don't want to have submissions that are, strict poetry or children's, YA fine, but not children's. We don't want nonfiction. We don't want fan fiction, erotica. Sorry, that's out. Anything with gratuitous violence or something, not looking for those kinds of stories either. So it's just not a good fit for this book and the market that we're going to sell the book to. We're also going to have an informational meeting. Maybe Paul might want to talk a little bit about the informational meeting that we've got coming up. Or did you want me to talk about that, Paul?
I'm happy to plug the meeting. Right. Linda and I are going to host a meeting by Zoom, and this is going to be an opportunity for people interested in working on this project, either by submitting stories or volunteering, to get together and meet the two of us to hear what we have to say about the anthology and to ask any questions. And that meeting is going to be held by Zoom Saturday, April 22nd at 10 a.m. And check the RMFW newsletter for the Zoom link.
Great. And that's for people who might be thinking about submitting. Is it also for people who might want to help you judge or do anything else?
Exactly. Both submitters and volunteers. Anyone interested in helping out on the project in any way.
Okay. Can you, and I can ask a question because that's what I get to do. So can you both judge and submit, or if you judge, are you out as a submitter?
I think we're kind of leaning towards having volunteer judges not be submitters.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We are
Yeah.
going to do it blind, and we've set up, not surprising, a rubric and a Google Forms for people to fill out to put in the scoring. And there is a question about, do you know this author, or do you need to self-select and not judge this particular one? So, but we think it'd be easier for volunteers that want to help judge. If they don't submit, I think it's just an easier thing. But we're looking for volunteers in many areas. And so for people that want to help, they can help in other ways besides judging as well.
Yep. For those who know the previous schedules and just how the flow works, are there any big changes you're putting into place with this production cycle?
Really, no. We're kind of following their lead. They really, as far as the deadline will be June 15th, and then until early fall, we'll start having the selection process by fall, and then editing, obviously, all the stories, getting all the production together, and then it should be released about the same as typical, sometime just before the Gold Conference, not this Gold Conference, but next year's Gold Conference. And then we'll have some kind of a tattered cover or Barnes & Noble or something. We'll have some kind of an event, really just like everybody else has done in the past. I think it's a good process, and we didn't get any feedback from the prior people that were the editors that said, nah, don't do this, or this wasn't a success, or we really haven't had any information like that at all. So why not follow in their very knowledgeable footsteps?
If I could just add to that, since Linda had a story in Bizarre Bazaar and I had a story in Wild, we're both kind of familiar with the timeline and the order of how things need to happen. And I think that's really helped us to get organized on this anthology as well.
Yeah, it's a really good pace, I think, in terms of, like, from right now, it's March 2nd when we're recording this. And so you're really looking at 16, 17 months, maybe even until it comes out. So you've got the selection process, but then you can really spend time working on the stories. There's a real schedule built in for editing, and then final assembly of the book itself, and also just some cushion there. You're not rushing too much, it doesn't feel like to me. And I think Angie Hodap, and I'm not sure who she worked with at the time, but decided that the previous schedule, which was more of a year, 1 year to the next, I think she said, let's do it every other year and really do it right. And I think that was a good move. I think it was Angie, but yeah, that's great. So if I put in a story on the day after you open your portal and the closes in June, when will I find out if I'm in or out?
Early fall.
I think our timeline for that is we're looking at mid-October to notify people that they have been accepted or rejected.
Yep. And are you saying exclusive submissions only, or if I've got a short story I want to send out to some big shot anthology in New York as well, is that okay?
You're making me think about all this stuff off the top of my head. I'm sure I've got it written down somewhere, but yes, we do accept simultaneous submissions. Just let us know if you've been accepted elsewhere.
Yeah.
And only one submission too. If you've got a bunch of great stories, pick the best one.
Oh, wait a minute. I have 40 stories ready to put in. I thought, oh, you want to read them all. Come on, guys.
You actually do, Mark. I actually started reading Lake of Fire not too long ago, and I was thinking, if this were a short story, this would be perfect for our anthology.
It's a little long for that. Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you for reading. Yeah. All right. So is there any other big hits we need to cover in terms of the production schedule? That's the basic things. The main focus is to get the word out, to have the best anthology. We need the best submissions, as many writers as possible to submit. It's a tremendous opportunity. Okay, I have a quick question for you I just thought of. Do you have any skills in spotting chatbot AI generated fiction? And that's something that a lot of editors are suddenly having to deal with, is this artificially generated fiction that is created by a prompt, where you just go into AI and you say, write me a short story about climate change set in Colorado, hit enter, and there, a few minutes later, you get a short story. And you can even tell it to, protagonist and all sorts of stuff.
Can I take a crack at that? So I wrote a blog recently for the specficwriters.com, our critique group website, called A Computer Wrote My Story. And so you can take a look at that if you'd like. Short answer for your question, we don't have any tools for this, but I think unless you take that output from those AIs and heavily edit it yourself, it's going to be pretty easy for people to spot that it was generated.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to ask submitters to be completely honest and follow the terms and conditions of OpenAI, which is the maker of ChatGPT. So if ChatGPT generates something and you quote it verbatim, you're required to clearly state that that was ChatGPT generated.
Yeah.
And if ChatGPT generates something that you heavily modify, you need to credit OpenAI and ChatGPT as a co-author. So I hope we don't see a lot of that stuff. I really don't. I would rather see people's genuine creative work, because I don't think anything quite compares to what the human creative spirit can generate yet.
Yep. What a crazy, crazy world we're living in, for sure. That's great. Great answer, Paul. Thank you for that.
Good question, Mark.
just occurred to me. So what do you each hope to get out of this as writers, as project managers, as stepping up to the plate here and taking this on? What do you each expect to get out of this? Maybe Linda, will start with you.
Sure. Every time you lead a project, anytime you approach something that you haven't done before, the learning experience is huge. And really what I'm hoping for is that my own personal writing skills improve, my reviewing skills improve, and all of the teamwork that's going to go on for this, organizational skills, enhancing that, all of that. The other big thing that is what I hope for is developing a stronger relationship and giving back to the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Organization. They have been so inspirational, and I've learned so much through their conferences, their critique group, their website, everything. And so just being able to give back a little bit to what I've received from them is a big part of it as well.
That's great. Yep. Paul?
Well, Linda's right. I'm definitely fired up about giving back to the RMFW community. When my story was accepted for the Wild Anthology as a new, very inexperienced writer, that really lifted me up. And I want to pay that forward to other RMFW members and give them that same experience and support. But I recognize that this is going to be a project with a large amount of work, and it's going to be quite challenging. And I hope that that experience grows and develops me as both a writer and an editor. And finally, I'd say I'm looking forward to taking something from concept to tangible book that I can hold in my hand and being involved with that project all the way beginning to end. That's
great. Very cool. Awesome. And how many total volunteers, what size team, just to get people interested, how many folks do you need to have accompany you on this journey and step up as judges and other volunteers, do you think?
Linda?
Both of us are deflecting. No, we've already got one person that's going to help us with the copy editing, which is great. And we've been told that there are people that do artwork and cover work that are going to be thrilled to participate with us. And so we haven't arranged anything yet or reached out to those folks yet because it's so far down in the process. But we do think that there's going to be people that help us with that. In addition, even just organizing the way the book looks is going to be important. Interestingly enough, it doesn't sound like some of the other teams before us had a lot of other judges involved. But we are going to reach out to see if we've organized the process so we can certainly accommodate more judges. And we're looking forward to doing that. They may be at later stages, they may be at early stages. We haven't really decided that yet. I guess when we find out how many volunteers we have, then we'll kind of figure out all the nuts and bolts of that. But I don't know. I mean, it's a loose team because Paul and I will be here for the whole thing, but other people will kind of come and go as we need their input and their work and that kind of thing. So I don't know, Paul, did you have anything to add to that or?
No, I think that that's an excellent explanation. We're looking for maybe just a small number of volunteer judges to help us out, just to make sure that we're, as a sanity check, basically, to make sure that we're making the right decision and include the opinions of other people. So that's going to help give us a lot of perspective. And I'm looking forward. I hope people actually contact us and volunteer as writing judges, because I'm looking forward to working with them on this project.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Another thing too, I belong to what's called the Chaffee County Writers Exchange. It's a Rocky Mountain fiction writer, excuse me, it's a kind of not Front Range, but it's in this area, Salida, BV, that kind of area. And we're having a youth writing competition. And actually we have 30 judges and I'm the organizer for those volunteers. And several of those people are also Rocky Mountain fiction writer members. And if they don't submit, I will probably be contacting those individuals since they do have some experience. It's a youth writing competition, but believe me, high school work is just as awesome as adults in a lot of cases. And so I might be calling on some of those folks to give us a hand as well. And they're just thrilled, you know, who doesn't want to participate in the judging process? That's where the fun lies, you know, is reading a bunch of stories and being able to give your opinion about them. So it seems like we'll be able to draw on that pool as well.
Awesome. Fantastic. Wow. Excellent. Quickly, are each of you going to be at Colorado Gold or plan to be in September?
Yes, I do.
That's my
Linda?
plan. Yeah, I plan to be there as well. I
Great.
get so much out of it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
How about you, Mark?
I am planning to be there. Yeah, absolutely.
Super.
I missed last year for the first time in a long time because it was competing with a big mystery writing conference in Minneapolis, but it pained me not to be there. So try to be there for sure. And as we wrap up, we always like to give our guests a chance to promote another book, a writer, you know, pay it forward a little bit and celebrate something you might have read recently or is just an all-time favorite. Linda, maybe we'll start with you and get your recommendation.
Sure. And frankly, I knew you were going to ask this and I was kind of struggling with it. And I was trying to think there's so many new authors out there that are really just brilliant that I like, but I'm going to go back to a classic, quite frankly, on this kind of pitch. And I've been reading the selected stories of Philip K. Dick. And I got to tell you, if you're a science fiction writer, it's great to go back to some, and I don't want to say originals, it was in the 50s, you know, and for my age, the 50s were not that long ago. But for any of the new authors, it would be, you know, way in the past. But, you know, the classics really give you a strong sense of the imagination that is possible and all of the movies that have been derived from Dick's work. It's just remarkable. There's so much emphasis right now on what we write about the way the trends are. You know, you got to write in third person close. You can't use any adverbs. You can't use any dialogue tags. And the classics didn't have those kinds of restrictions. And so going back to some of those roots and looking at those things, it really helps you see that, you know, those tiny little rules that we pay so much attention to, they didn't make any difference back then because the stories were just incredible. So anyway, that's what I've been reading and that's what I've been enjoying.
What were some of the movies that didn't Blade Runner start with a Philip K. Dick story?
And Total Recall,
Total Recall,
and, and Minority Report. I mean, there's been a ton of them that have come from his stories, and all short stories, interestingly enough.
Right. The name of the short story that inspired Blade Runner was something about sheep dreaming. I'm trying to pull it up. Do something.
Something like do electronic sheep really dream or something like that.
Do androids dream of electronic sheep? Yes.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Paul to the rescue. Paul to the rescue. Great job. Excellent. Paul, what about you?
So, wow, there's so many I could list, but I picked one because that's what you asked for, and that is Tropic of Kansas which was the 2017 debut novel by Christopher Brown. And it's a great book, definitely read it. But the other thing you need to know about Christopher Brown is his amazing newsletter called Field Notes. It's like a little weekly dystopian nature essay, and it's definitely worth 5 minutes of your time every week. So very easy to find if you do a web search for Field Notes by Christopher Brown.
Excellent. I had not heard of that. Sounds fantastic. Wow. Well, again, thank you for stepping up to the plate on the editing job here. And thank you for your time today and giving us this rundown of your plans for the anthology. And we wish you well. Hope it goes smoothly. So maybe we'll catch up with you down the road. But in the meantime, thanks again for jumping on the podcast.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And thanks for helping promote the anthology.
Really appreciate it, Mark.